Hello, my lovely viewers. Are you ready to find out what happens next? Let's do it then. Chapter 7 Interrupted Affection. A week or so have already passed after that birthday celebration. Ever since then, every day went by rather smoothly for Ian. She didn't feel as nervous or as scared as before. She felt as if she broke all of those invisible chains that were attached to her soul and heart. It simply felt wonderful. The warmth filled both her body and soul, and so she felt rather optimistic. Ian got used to being a servant in this palace by now, and she was more than happy and grateful for working here. She made friends, she was accepted by others, and she didn't have to worry about her friends disappearing and leaving her sooner or later. All of that life that she was used to so far was gone, most likely locked away in the past. Ian noticed that she felt many different feelings ever since she stepped into this gorgeous royal place. From warmth to care, from care to friendship, and from friendship to love? Ian raised her brow in confusion. Was it that love she felt too? What was it? She wasn't sure. She wasn't even sure towards whom she developed this strange feeling of affection. She thought about people she knew, and right after, she thought of the handsome young pharaoh. Her heart seemed as if it skipped a beat as heat rushed to the girl's cheeks. It couldn't be that she fell for the king of Egypt. However, her thoughts were interrupted by a familiar voice which brought her back to reality. "Ian!" Mana called out before wrapping her delicate arms around Ian and pulling her into a warm, friendly hug. This act immediately brought a smile to Ian's face. "Long time no see," the bubbly brunette commented before pulling away from the girl. Ian nodded. "Long time no see indeed. How have you been?" Ian questioned, smiling at the young brunette, who quickly replied, "I've been practicing a lot with Mahat lately, which is rather tiresome from time to time. But other than that, I'm great, as always." Mana spoke, returning Ian's smile. "What about you, Ian? I didn't get to see you ever since that celebration. Which reminds me, you are amazing. So pretty," she added, her eyes shining in awe as she rambled. Ian blushed lightly at the girl's compliment before replying, "I'm good as well, and thank you, Mana," she said. "You're welcome, Ian. Everyone liked your performance. Atem was enjoying it the most, though," Mana continued, her loud and optimistic voice echoing through the room. Upon hearing Mana's last sentence, Ian could feel her face heat up even more. Why was she like this? She felt rather pleased to hear that Atem was enjoying her little performance, but she just couldn't accept the fact that she had developed feelings for him. So she just tried to look for other, more satisfying and appropriate answers. Before Ian could reply to the young brunette, She heard the sounds of footsteps coming in their way, and Mana only looked at the young, tall man approaching them. This man was one of the high priests who served the young lord, and he was also his loyal childhood friend, Mahad. Mana smiled at the taller male, while Ian just bowed respectfully as he spoke up. Mana, you should go back and practice your skills, he said, looking down at the smaller girl. All right, Mana replied to her teacher, who looked down at the brown-haired girl that stood beside Mana. You are Ian, I suppose, he questioned, and Ian replied with a nod. Yes, I am, she replied politely. The pharaoh wishes to see you, he informed her, and she nodded once again. See you around, Ian, Mana waved, before walking away with Mahad, immediately starting a conversation with him as they walked beside each other. See you, Ian hummed in response before looking away. Without wasting any time, she started walking towards the pharaoh's chambers, wondering why did Pharaoh wish to see her so suddenly. Did she do something wrong? No, it couldn't be that. Ian couldn't recall making any mistakes in the last few days, which just left her thinking all sorts of ideas crossing her curious and slightly worried mind. Upon approaching the familiar royal doors, she realized her heart was beating faster than usual. She shook her head, attempting to calm down, and then she took a deep breath before knocking on the door and stepping inside of the well-known room. My pharaoh, I was informed that you wish to see me, Ian spoke softly as she bowed, her gaze falling onto the golden floor. Come here, Atem ordered, his voice reaching her ears from the balcony. With no hesitation, the young female walked out onto the balcony, enjoying the warm, clean air, which immediately touched her soft hair. She liked the feeling of hot sunshine caressing her cool skin, as long as she wasn't forced to spend an entire day under that burning sunlight, with no water, no food. She stood behind the young king, who seemed to be lost in thought while he carefully observed his kingdom. His eyes were soft, yet slightly narrowed, since sunlight was hitting his face. The wind rushed through his tree-colored hair, playing with his locks and his white tunic. After a short moment of silence, the young man turned around, looking down at the respectful young lady before him. He held onto the warm fence with one of his hands, while his other one rested on his thigh. A small yet audible sigh escaped his soft lips. Ian patiently waited for Pharaoh's words, and she heard them soon after. Ian, he started, and despite the fact that his deep voice sounded rather serious, it still hid a small, barely noticeable hint of nervousness and insecurity. Look at me, Atem said. Upon hearing these words, Ian's heart suddenly beat faster. Little did she know Atem's heartbeat was just as fast and as loud as her own. She wasn't sure if she heard and understood Atem's words well, so she did nothing. This is an order, the young pharaoh added, noticing that Ian didn't look up at him yet. Feeling rather uneasy, and as if there was countless amount of butterflies flying in her stomach, she finally allowed herself to look up at the taller male. Her blue orbs met his bright violet ones, and for a second it felt as if time just stopped. There was just two of them, silently admiring each other as no words left their mouths. Then it clicked for both of them. They liked each other. In that moment, nothing mattered. Their ranks didn't matter. The fact that Ian was a simple common servant and that Atem was a pharaoh and king of Egypt was nothing but a meaningless series of unimportant titles. Slowly, Atem placed his hand onto the girl's warm cheek and leaned closer, while Ian gripped the comfortable material of his white tunic lightly. Soon, their lips were nearly touching, as Ian could even feel Atem's hot breath brushing against her skin. Both of them closed their eyes, leaning even closer to each other, their lips just inches away. They both stopped moving for a second, taking a while to enjoy being so close together. And just when their lips were about to brush against each other, a loud knock on the door interrupted them. The two of them took a step back, opening their eyes slowly once again. Atem pulled his hand away, and so did Ian, before hearing a heavy and slightly irritated sigh escape Atem's lips. "Never mind," he mumbled silently, before turning to face the doors which led to his bedroom. Ian lowered her gaze, pretending as if nothing just happened. She couldn't even believe it herself. The familiar, tall man stepped out onto the balcony before eyeing Ian and Atem, apparently and fortunately clueless about what just happened and what was about to happen. "Your Majesty, I wish to discuss with you about a very important matter," Prince Zero spoke, and Atem nodded before looking back down at the young girl. "You are dismissed, Ian," he said, and Ian bowed. "Yes, my pharaoh," she said, before walking out of his chambers, her heart beating quickly and her face bright red. Chapter 8. Meaning Behind Words. It was a warm sunny afternoon, just another normal day in the manly dry Egyptian lands. Ian had just finished cleaning the royal throne room and was walking towards the smaller dining hall for servants. She wanted to inform Anai that she had finished working in the throne room for the day. She walked quickly, not taking the time to admire these wonderful shiny halls like she usually would. It wasn't only that she had already gotten used to being here, but it was that she would let her mind and thoughts wander if she were to slow down and think of something else other than her duties. This other thing she was afraid and embarrassed of was simply a reminder that she, Ian, the servant and former slave, almost kissed Atem, the pharaoh and the one who ruled over Egypt. And there it was, she thought of it again. The heat suddenly rushed down her entire body as her soft cheeks warmed up as she walked quickly. She shook her head, beating her lower lip as she tried to forget about that event, but it was no use. Her fast and loud heartbeat couldn't be ignored so easily, and it just kept reminding her of that rather nice moment she shared with the pharaoh. She could even feel his warm, gentle hand cupping her cheek, and the soft, wrinkled material of his tunic in her hand. Shaking her head once again, the female closed her eyes, exhaling heavily as she was getting closer and closer to the dining hall. However, she stopped working as she saw a well-familiar woman standing in front of her and her train of thoughts were interrupted when the kind, gentle voice reached her ears and mind. "Oh, Ian, I was about to look for you. What a coincidence," Anai commented, her warm, genuine smile present on her delicate, feminine features. Ian noticed that Anai didn't wear any jewelry, as she would usually wear 1 or 2 bracelets and shiny earrings. However, she wore the same attire as always, a normal long white sleeveless dress that reached her ankles and a pair of comfortable wooden sandals. Ian raised her brow at the friendly female. "And I was looking for you. I wanted to tell you that I have finished cleaning the throne room," Ian spoke, and I nodded, noticing the rather confused look on the younger girl's face, and her smile only grew wider. "All right then, you shall accompany me on my way to the market," Anai said, a hint of excitement present in her soft tone. "Market?" Ian repeated, and Anai replied with a nod. "Why, yes, market. You didn't walk out of this place ever since you came here, right? It will be good for you if you take a walk and go outside for a bit. Besides, I won't be lonely if you keep me some company," Anai said. "Now come with me," she added, dragging Ian outside with her. As soon as the 2 women stepped outside of the palace, warmth and sunshine greeted them. Ian's lips curved up into a small smile as she followed the older lady. No words left their mouth as they went further away from the rich building, only to get closer to the lively streets and civilization. After a few minutes of walking, the 2 of them found themselves in the noisy crowd, one Ian knew quite well. However, it was slightly different this time. She didn't have to walk with her head lower. She didn't have to listen to the faint rustling of her old chains and insulting whispers of other people. She didn't have to limit herself in fear of whip and the man. She was free of all those worries now. Her innocent, honest smile only grew as she observed many hardworking people chatting with each other and selling their properties. Young children chased each other, occasionally bumping into others, but their grins never faded away and their laughter never died down. These streets basically screamed with optimism at first glance. But Ian's smile faded away as soon as she remembered what she went through and what nightmares and hell she saw and called it her life. Deep in the shadows, there were evil people hiding from the touch of light, their hearts and minds colored in pure black and darkness. Their wicked laughter suddenly echoed through her head, and she glanced around, searching for any familiar face, which kept her locked in cage. All of a sudden, she felt nervous and afraid. She anxiously observed, but she found nothing other than the noisy, positive citizens. Her blue eyes couldn't find any poor, bruised souls that forced themselves to walk, nor she could find the person who was under the dark spell of greed and lust. "Ian, are you listening?" Anai spoke, looking at the younger girl, whose train of thoughts was broken as soon as she heard Anai's voice. "Ah, sorry, Anai. What did you say?" Ian started, paying attention to Anai, who only frowned at her. "I said that we should go over there first," Anai repeated, pointing at the row of big stands, which had all sorts of vegetables, fruit, and spices displayed on them. Ian nodded before following Anai to the stands, which were carefully observed by their owners, who were most likely looking for customers and any thieves that dared to steal things which innocents tried to sell in order to get money for living. The two women approached one of the stands, the one which belonged to an old lady who sat on the other side of the stand. She was selling many things, from spices to vegetables and some old-looking cooking utensils. She had short gray hair, and her body was hidden under the long sand-colored cloak, yet her face was exposed. She was smiling, and her bright brown eyes reflected happiness and generosity. She seemed to become even happier upon noticing Anai coming her way. Anai, hello, my friend. The old lady spoke slowly, her voice frail, yet friendly and optimistic. Anai returned the older woman's smile. Bara, hello. How are you? Asked Anai, and Bara nodded. I am great, enjoying my old life, she replied, her gaze falling onto the brown young lady beside Anai. The brown-haired young lady beside Anai. Oh, is this young girl your new companion, Anai? Bara asked, looking at Anai and then back at Ian. You look quite lovely, my dear. I remember when I was as young as you are. Ah, those were good old days. Take care of that body while you can, okay? The old lady spoke, and Ian couldn't help herself but only smile at the kind words that left Barack's mouth. This is Ian, and yes, she's my newest companion. She's quite hard-working young lady, I must say. And I spoke, complimenting the younger female. That is good to hear. Your husband must be proud of your hard work, yes? Bora said, eyeing Ian, who suddenly blushed before shaking her head. No, I'm not married. I don't have a husband, Ian stuttered, and Bora seemed slightly disappointed upon hearing Ian's answers. Anyway, what do you have for me today, Bora? Anai questioned after a light chuckle left her mouth, and the old woman pointed at the bright red tomatoes and other food which she displayed. These are fresh, she said, smiling. After Anai and Ian finished their shopping and had a long talk with Bora, they headed back towards the palace. Ian's eyes fell onto many people, and her gaze wandered around once again, searching for poor souls or men who tortured those innocent people. The hot rays of sunshine burned her warm skin, and her feet sank into the shiny sand beneath her feet. However, it didn't burn her like it used to, since she wore sandals. Anai? Ian called out, and Anai responded with a hum. How come that we didn't run into any slaves? Ian mumbled, her gaze falling down to the ground under her. The sun was dying, sinking slowly behind the countless golden hills, and so was the crowd and noise. It became more silent and emptier with each step they took. All of a sudden, some kind of sadness took over Ian's body, and she felt concerned. What about all of those girls out there that are abused, or maybe... What about all of those girls out there that are abused, or maybe even killed? What about all of the poor, hungry people? She felt as if it was wrong that she managed to pull away from the hell, only to leave everyone else behind, still locked in it, despite the fact that it wasn't her choice and that she could do nothing about it to begin with. Anai noticed the unhappy and worried expression on Ian's face, and she spoke up. You know, that night when you came into the palace, many other women and slaves were set free, Anai said. What? Ian replied, looking up at the brown-haired female. The pharaoh and high priest got informed of the situation in the city, and of course, their king had to do something about it. in order to meet the man who tortured the young women and in order to find out their exact location, Pharaoh had visited that man in Bayou. Not too long after he had left and came into the palace, the man was arrested and women were set free. Pharaoh decided to let you stay in the palace as he wanted to see it with his own eyes. How did one slave behave and how broken she was? And I explained, and Ian didn't reply. She kept silent, glad that Abu got what he deserved and that innocent women were set free. But she also felt quite weird as some mixture of confusion and surprise filled her being, sending shivers down her spine. Pharaoh did that? She had no idea. She was clueless this entire time. How broken one slave was. Upon thinking about Anai's words, she remembered Pharaoh's ones. Good. You are not completely broken, I see. You are still able to smile. A tense words echoed through her mind. So that's what it was all about. Next few minutes passed by in silence, and the two companions have reached the palace once again. Yin was greeted by the royal halls and decorated golden walls, and she let out a sigh as she was alone once again. Anai went back into the kitchens, most likely to make supper. Ian let a small sigh escape her lips before making her way back to her own chambers, but she stopped walking upon hearing someone call out her name. Ian! A female voice echoed from the room, and Ian turned around to see a tall, tanned woman with long black hair, a high priestess. She immediately bowed down to show respect towards this woman, who responded, "Please, rise," she spoke before mumbling a sentence. "Soon, we are all going to bow down in front of you anyway." That's all from me. That's all for now, guys. But don't you guys worry. The next part will be coming to you very soon. If you guys enjoyed it, subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on the notification bell. Until next time, my sweeties. Bye, everyone.